Thank you, everybody who's joined us today for this session in the summer training and learning program at UHN. We're so excited to have this amazing series of workshops to guide you through all different kinds of skills that we think you might like to obtain while you're doing research at UHN. If you joined us in the past, we had sessions on LinkedIn and exploring careers in research and in healthcare. And we have future sessions on topics such as resumes and cover letters and everything you need to know about grad school. We're really excited today to be joined by the UHN Libraries and Information team, who are going to present to you on setting yourself up for success. And they'll be covering a bunch of resources and information that you need that might be useful during your research career. Now, if you're a UHN student, and you're aiming to get your certificate of program completion for this UHN STAR program, please make sure that you complete the attendance form, and I'll be putting the attendance form in the chat, and I'll send it a couple of times over the course of this session for anybody who misses it. So please feel free to fill that out. As a reminder, you need to attend 4 sessions or watch the recordings for 4 sessions and participate in a research day in order to get that certificate of completion. And so with that, I am going to pass it over to our wonderful colleagues, and we'll start off with Ashley. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Amanda. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session, Starting Up for Success Tips for New Researchers. So my name is Ashley Farrell. I am an information specialist with UHN Library and Information Services. And along with my colleague, Thomas Blennerhassett, will be taking you through this session today. And Tom is from Michener Library, I should say, as well. Melanie and Ruhi, two of my colleagues from UHN Libraries, will be in the chat. They'll help answer any questions you may have today. And then they'll also be dropping relevant links as I'm talking about the different points of the presentation. So first of all, before we get started, we want to get an idea of the group we have here today and how much research experience everybody has. So please, if you can, put your answer into the chat, whether you have a little bit, you're new to research, whether you have a little bit of experience, or whether you are quite experienced. Just so we can get an idea of the makeup of the group today. It looks like some answers are coming in through the chat. So it looks like so far it's a combination of new to research or have a little bit of experience. I see one person that says experience, but everyone else seems to be new, fairly new, or has a little. Okay, great. I just wanted to get an idea of that, just because this is a workshop that is geared towards new researchers, people that might have either no experience or just a little bit of experience. There'll probably be something in here for everybody, even maybe someone who's experienced will find something new here, but that is the main.
Ashley has let me know that she is continuing to have trouble getting onto the internet, so she's going to keep working on that, and we'll see how far we can get before she gets back on. Oh, this looks like it's a slightly earlier version of this, but we're gonna give it a try anyway. So we were here, and we found out that most folks are either new or have just a little bit of experience, which is where we're at for this. So we're going to be talking about a number of different tools that you can use around developing research questions. We've got a tool for you to figure out, if you're doing literature searches, which databases would actually make sense for you to be searching in. We're not going to be doing the research design piece. Instead, we're going to talk a little bit about research data management, and then we've got some ideas for you for managing and creating formatted citations, just because that's always an unpleasant task when you're writing a manuscript, and also if you're doing a project that involves a very large number of citations, it's good to be able to know where they all are and be able to find them and organize them and take notes in an easy way. So we'll show you some things to do with that. We're also going to talk to you a little bit about ORCID, and it's pretty likely that you've already heard about ORCID if you've been in the research world for any amount of time at all, but it's a really important tool to make it easy for both you and other people to find all of your publications. So we'll show you that really quick. We're also going to talk to you about a couple of tools for identifying journals that would be receptive to your research. So finding the ones that are interested in the kinds of topics that you are that you're looking at and the kinds of questions that you're asking. And with any luck, despite all these technical difficulties, we'll have a good chunk of time at the end to do questions. For developing a research question, if you are in clinical research, you're going to have you're either going to have seen PICO before, or you're going to see it many times in future. PICO is a tool, one of the many tools that we use to come up with a question that is specific enough that it is possible to answer, and that is taking into account the kinds of things that you want to be thinking about when you're coming up with a question. Now, if you're not doing clinical research, there are a ton of other tools out there for you. And the handout that Ruhi is going to pop into the chat just now has links out to a number of places where you can find a lot of other tools. So if patient intervention, comparison, and outcome doesn't make sense for the kind of research that you're doing, there's lots of other tools. In this case, we would be identifying, let's say we're doing kidney transplant patients with type 2 diabetes. We've got a specific intervention that we're interested in. We maybe don't have a comparison right now, but we also do have an outcome that we're interested in. And this kind of tool can help you both with making sure that the research question that you're asking is specific enough that it is answerable. And also, this is a useful tool for if you are needing to do a literature search, making sure that the question that you are trying to get out of the database is specific enough that you're not going to be finding, 5 million results that you have to like sort through to figure out where the relevant materials are. If you're looking at all of the various tools that are available in that handout, and you're not seeing, like you're not really matching up, they don't really feel like they fit with the kind of question that you're trying to ask, there's what we call concept boxes, which are pretty much useful for any kind of a question at all. And what you would do is write out in a single sentence, this is the thing that I want to be finding out about. And then in that sentence, you would be identifying out of the words that are in this sentence, what are the key concepts? So if we were to have written out a sentence to describe this question, so does this kind of intervention work for these kinds of patients for effectiveness and safety? We might come up with these concept boxes. So we've got our kidney transplant terms, we've got our diabetes type 2 terms, and we've got our intervention terms here. And these are particularly useful if you've got a particularly complicated or a question that involves a lot of non-concrete kinds of concepts where it's hard to say, well, this really fits into the outcome box. I mean, it might not fit into the outcome box, but it's still important. Well, then maybe concept boxes are going to work out better for you. And those are super helpful for just making sure that you're going into your research or your literature search just really focused on something that you're going to be able to get something valuable back out of, instead of a sort of nebulous, what do I do with this pile of data? If we're looking at the sentence, we want to find out if pacing improves long-term quality of life for patients with post-viral fatigue. And that might be different for different demographic groups. So it's not really a really good research question. It's got a lot of nebulous things in here. There might be different demographic groups. What are we talking about for long-term? So if you were fitting this into PICO, so you were trying to focus it in so that it would fit in PICO, we're gonna drop a link in the chat for you to vote on which thing you think should go into population, and then I'll put up the results and we'll chat about it. So I'm going to give you a minute or so to do that.
Yeah, hi Melanie, I put the link in the chat.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
We'll just try to get the results up. Hold on. Whoop. Okay, I believe I've got it up over here. And again, you get to see all my millions of tabs that are open, so that should be enjoyable for you. Okay, so let's see where we are on this. So we've got demographic groups currently winning. We've got post-viral fatigue coming in second, quality of life. Third, pacing is losing altogether. So that's something to talk about. We've got, I'm going to give you another, I don't know, say 30 seconds. Okay, the numbers aren't changing at all. Here we go, a little bit more. We've got a little bit more in the demographic groups. We've got 11 for post-viral fatigue. Okay. I'm going to, let's go back to the slides here and talk about the question again here. So if we've got we're interested in pacing in patients with post-viral fatigue. And that might be different for different demographic groups. We're not really sure. That's maybe something we want to check out. And we're looking at PICO, where P is for patient, problem, or population. And in the example, it was kidney transplant patients with type 2 diabetes. Usually, based on this kind, like this question here, we would be looking at patients with post-viral fatigue as the population, because we're thinking that the outcome might be that there might be different results for different demographic groups, but we're not really sure about that. And also we don't have a specific demographic group in mind, but we're definitely interested in patients with post-viral fatigue. So usually as a rule, you would be slotting that into the population problem column for PICO, and then your intervention here would be pacing. We don't have a comparison in mind, and the outcomes we'd be interested in would be quality of life for different demographic groups. Now, if we did have a specific demographic group in mind, let's say we were interested in patients over the age of 65, for example, then in our population column, we would be interested in patients with post-viral fatigue who are over the age of 65, and our intervention would still be pacing, and our outcome would still be quality of life. So that's usually how that would go. Now, so we want to focus on the things that we know we're interested in when it comes to PICO, for sure. Does that make sense? I'm just going to look at the chat to see if anybody's got. Oh, thank you, Kyle. Not as many tabs as you have open. That's very kind, I'm sure. Okay. Okay. I'm not seeing anybody having any particular questions. Let me know if you do, and we'll sort of come back to that. So let's pop on forward then, and we'll go to choosing databases to search.
Melanie, I will let you know if there are any questions in the chat.
Okay, thank you very much, Ruby.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Yeah. So choosing databases to search, and I don't have the table open here. So
Melanie, I can send it to you if you want, if that helps.
okay.
And also the link to the table is in the chat.
The link to the tables in the chat. Great. I'll just open it from there then. The table that is in the chat, the handout for choosing databases, what we've done there, and this is opening in my many tabbed browser here. What we've done here is we've tried to give you an idea of what kinds of topics you would want to be looking at different databases for. So all of the databases have overlapping coverage, but some different kinds of coverage. So for instance, if you're only going to search one database for pharmaceutical research, you might actually want to skip Medline and go straight to Embase. Embase just has more pharmaceutical research in it. But that's not to say that Medline isn't a good database to do, and Cochrane Central isn't a good database to do. It's just a matter of like which ones to focus on for which questions. So for instance, qualitative research, Medline and Embase aren't super great at covering qualitative research. That's not really where their focus is. But if you go into some of the nursing and allied health databases or PsycInfo, even you'll get some additional coverage for that type of research. So depending on the topic that you're interested in, you would want to be choosing different databases. And if you have any questions about you're trying to find literature, or you need to do some kind of an intensive literature search, definitely contact the library. We'll be happy to talk to you about choosing appropriate databases for your project or the search that you're doing. And depending on what you're doing, we're also totally happy to do the searches for you. So you don't have to worry about them. We'll just send you the results. So that's for choosing a database. You just have to really keep in mind, yes, there are some very important databases that are bigger and more important than other ones, but they don't necessarily always have the best coverage for every single topic. So you don't want to default to always using PubMed, for example, just to let you know. Okay, so let's go back to our slides here.
Thank you for having me in. I'm Tom Blennerhassett, and I'm here to talk to you about RDM, Research Data Management. It's quite a mouthy description on the screen at the moment, but essentially, research data management is the way that you manage all the stuff that you make while you do research. Research is a notoriously good stuff generator. It generates paper, it generates files, it generates pictures, it generates emails even. And research data management is how you organize and keep track of all of that in an organized manner, in a manner that is both reproducible and shareable, as well as some other buzzwords. If we can go to the next slide. I can't control. Sorry, next slide, please.
Sorry, just one second. It's not
No problem.
kidding.
That is okay. It's such a complex definition that it even refuses to skip slides. So yeah, research data management kind of accomplishes a number of things for researchers. The things that I think are the most important are obviously bolded on this slide, but I think the number one thing really to stress is that by having good research data management, research data management skills, as well as a good research data management plan, it keeps you organized and it keeps you able to find things. Like I mentioned earlier, research just creates an enormous amount of stuff that you have to keep track of. And when you have both a plan and the means to quickly search through all the things that you generate, you're able to find your files much more easily. And that keeps you on track, keeps you efficient in your research, and it keeps you able to be moving forward in your actual work. It helps you keep track of different versions of your data. That is a major problem, especially in the digital age that we live in. It's not just, an old piece of paper. It's an actual file that you have to keep track of. It does help you organize and compile information at the end of your project, which sounds maybe to people who are new in research is kind of a foreign idea. But over the course of a research project that can go over in some cases years or maybe even decades, the number of things that you have can just balloon out of control. And by having a good research data management plan and having an idea of how you're going to keep track of all this stuff beforehand, you can essentially go and find the most recent and relevant information for your final project or for your final products much more easily. One of the major things that we're now stressing in research is the ability to reproduce your work. If someone asks you, how did you come to these conclusions, and can I take a look at the raw data? In many cases, you're actually mandated to show that to them. You have to basically show your work in math class. You have to go back and say, this is how I got everything. And here you go. You can reproduce my results. I think I came to the correct conclusions based on this information. If you are not organized throughout your research process, that can be an incredibly difficult task to actually achieve. And in many cases, it can be impossible. And that can lead to some problems for both yourself and for other researchers who are interested in working on some of the things that you have been working on in the past. It lets you share your work. This is the shareability of your information is so important nowadays, especially since in the past, there were things like proprietary file formats that we simply don't have the ability, unless you have a very specific program, to open. You could have encoded, or you could have password locked information that you have either forgotten or you simply don't have the ability to share anymore. And those are all barriers to having both shareable, findable, and interoperable data, which is all things that we're trying to achieve. One of the next things is satisfy grant requirements, again in bold, because it's important, because many grants, particularly Tri-Council grants in Canada, mandate that you be able to share your information upon request. And in some cases, require that you keep them for a certain amount of time, but just basically say that you have to have some sort of plan in place in order to keep track of all these things. And before we move on to the next slide, I think it's important to mention that you guys are all pretty new to this. And we don't expect you to be, nobody should expect you to be an expert in all of this right off the bat. Research data management is a pretty big topic, but essentially it boils down to stay organized while you do your research. And in many cases, your supervisor or the person that you are working with will have a protocol or set of protocols that you should keep in mind and that you should ask them about when you start with them in order to keep yourself on the research data management plan that they may have, but also just to work better with your team. So in many cases, you're not going to be doing all of this, creating an original research data management plan yourself. What you're going to be doing is working with your team, learning the ropes and finding out how they do things and what they consider to be best practice, and adopting that for yourself. But it's good that you understand that there's sort of this wider world for researchers that you may need to engage with yourself in the next couple of years or months. I don't know. Next slide, please. Oh, that's one slide back.
Apologies, my mouse isn't cooperating.
Oh, that's okay. I know you want to work on that. I can talk about the research data management plan because I've been mentioning it a lot. RDMPs are basically the document. They don't tell you exactly. Here we go. Thank you very much. RDMPs are documents that essentially jot down all your ideas about how you're going to keep track of this information and give you sort of specific guidelines and information about what you're going to be keeping track of and how you're going to be keeping track of it. So it's less about the content of the data. The plan is not telling you, when I will be collecting the price of sugar in Canada. No, it's saying when I do collect data, it will be in this format and it will be stored in this way and it will be shareable in this manner. So less about content, more about the actual metadata and data that you're trying to keep track of. And important to note here is that no one RDMP is the same. Sorry, no two RDMPs are the same. It's going to change depending on the type of research that you're doing, as well as the kind of data that you're generating and engaging with. There's no sort of like hard standard for this. It's essentially just a sequence of best practices that you should adopt in order to keep your information findable, shareable, and interoperable. Next slide, please. And with that, I think we're gonna cease talking about our research data management. I think it's an interesting topic. I think it's something that you should keep in mind. But essentially, the takeaway from here is that you should be mindful of the standards that your supervisors have for their data. You should be adopting those best practices that they think are important. And if you have any questions in the future, you're always welcome to reach out to them, as well as I believe UHN Research is the primary contact for research data management at UHN at the moment. And with that, I'm going to pass it back off to Ashley, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Tom.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom, and thank you, Melanie, so much for taking over for me. Hopefully it's the end of my technical difficulties. Otherwise, I'll come to the conclusion that Zoom just doesn't want me to teach today, I guess. So managing and creating formatted citations. So as you might be familiar with through your schooling, creating citations, dealing with them can be a pain, can be very tedious. Knowing how APA versus Vancouver wants a citation formatted can be quite annoying and can keeping all of your literature organized and making it easy to find. But there are tools that exist called citation managers. They can help you stay organized, find and notate articles, create inline citations, as well as create bibliographies automatically in whatever style you choose. They can be an incredible time saver and help organize your research. There are a number of different citation managers that you can use. So I'm going to show you a few today. So I'm going to show you a guide that has been created by Gerstein Library at University of Toronto, where they have this great comparison table of different types of citation manager softwares that you can use. So one such as EndNote, which EndNote Desktop is a paid resource through EndNote Basic, which is this free version. Then there's Zotero Mendeley, which are also some free versions. So they all have their pluses and minuses based on, whether you have to pay, what features they offer, how much is free, etc. But you can take a look at this list here and get an idea of what citation manager might be best for you, depending on funds you have available, what you'd like to do, how many citations you like to be able to have within your library, etc. So along with this guide here, I also wanted to mention that at UHN Libraries, we do a number of different workshops, and we have a couple of recorded workshops on two very popular citation managers. So we have one, EndNote Basics on EndNote, which is a paid resource. You have to pay to get a license for it. It's a robust, really great resource, but there is that component to where you do have to pay for it. And then we also have one on Zotero, which is a free open source citation manager. So that's also a great option if you want to try one of these out and may not have the funds to pay for something like EndNote. So we have both of these workshops here. You can watch them through the links here through YouTube, access them anytime in case you would like to learn more. Or you could always contact the library at UHN, get connected with your information specialist, and we can even do a one-on-one session with you too. Just because these tools are really great and you could talk a long time about them, but unfortunately we only have a limited time today. So now I'm going to move on to the next tool, which is ORCID, which is an author identifier. So, and what author identifiers do is they can help make your publications more findable. So unless you have a very unique name, there are probably several other researchers that have your name, or at least your last name and your first initial. I know there are many A. Farrells out there that exist, and at least a couple Ashley Farrells. And with your ORCID, you can assign a unique number to all of your publications to make them easy to find and to pull together for a CV for your resume, and also make it easier for other researchers to find all of your publications without finding another person's publications that have your same name. Another thing that I'll also mention is that a lot of journals now are asking for your ORCID when you submit a manuscript to them. So it's a good idea to have this set up now so that you have it ready to go when you start publishing. So I'm going to give you an example of how this works. So I'm going to go into PubMed and I'm going to search for my colleague, Melanie Anderson, who kindly took over for me today. So you can see here, if I search for Melanie Anderson as an author, I'm getting 57 results. And quite a large number of these will be Melanie Anderson at UHN. You see you have Melanie Anderson M, Anderson MN, Anderson MD. So not all of these are obviously the same Melanie, but they're all together in this one place, which makes it hard to identify whose is whose. So this is where ORCID can come in. So this is ORCID's main page. It is very easy to set up your ORCID ID. It says it's free and only takes a minute. So you can just go here to register and just fill out some basic information. So there's a teeny bit of work in order to get it set up, but not much. You can do it within a few minutes, like I said. You add in your education, your work experience, your publications. It makes it super easy to put your publications in here because you can just put in the DOI or your PubMed ID or things like that, or you can even just search and find it. So it's very simple to set up. I'm going to use Melanie as an example again. So if we see here, there are, like I said, a number of Melanie Andersons that are popping up. The Melanie Anderson from UHN is this one here. So I'm going to click on her ORCID ID. And then, like I said, put in your employment information, your education, and then all of your publications that are assigned to you here. So great and valuable when you're putting together your CV because you have everything in one place, and then makes it very easy for people to find the publications that are actually yours. So that is ORCID. Now I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint slides, and I'm going to go to the last tool that we're going to talk about today, which is choosing a journal. As in choosing a journal that you want to publish in. So you may know the names of the big journals in your research area, but they might not necessarily be the best place in order to submit your manuscript. And this could be potentially because maybe they don't take the certain publication type that you're working on right now, or maybe the topic is just a bit out of scope. And so there are tools that exist, such as Jane, which I'll be talking about, that can help you choose journals in your field and choose journals that have accepted manuscripts on similar topics to yours, making it more likely that they would accept the one that you're going to submit. So I'm going to pull up Jane here. So with Jane, there's a couple ways you can use this. You can either put in your title or your abstract or summary about what your paper is about, or you can type in some keywords as well here too, in order to find relevant journals. So I'm going to go back to looking for title and abstract. And I'm going to, right, I had copy and pasted something else. Trying to get online. So I'm going to search for myself in PubMed, and I'm going to pull up a publication here. So I'm going to say that I'm looking for, this is my title, that I'm looking for, see what journals would want to take a manuscript on our earlier PICO question about SGLT2 inhibitors in patients with pre-existing type 2 diabetes and chronic and kidney disease in kidney transplant patients. So I'm going to type and then there's a title, and then I'm going to click on Find Journals. You also have the option of finding authors and finding articles too, but I'm going to look for journals. And so it's going to provide me with a list here of the journals that it thinks would be most relevant, that has similar publications to what I'm looking to submit. And so they're ranked in order according to relevancy. So we have transplantation reviews here at the top, advances in chronic kidney disease, diabetes therapy. You see they all seem pretty on point. And then I'll let you know if these are indexed in Medline. So that would make your publication very visible, or if you can find it within PubMed Central. And also let you know if it's a high quality open access journal too, in case you want to publish open access. And then you can go over to the sidebar here and it will show you relevant articles. So articles that it thinks that are on topic or close to what you're looking for. So this can be a very helpful tool when you're trying to decide where should I publish, what's an actually good, high quality journal that I should be taking a look at in order to submit and share my research with. So that brings me to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much, all of you, for your patience, for your questions, and for bearing with us. We now have an opportunity. I think we have about 14 minutes now. If anyone has any questions that they haven't sent through the chat so far, please feel free to ask us now. Thank you.
And while we wait for questions to come in, I just want to say a huge thank you to both Ashley and Thomas, as well as the entire libraries team for such a useful session. And thank you to all the attendees for your patience while we sorted through difficulties.
Yeah, year 3 of Zoom life, and still there's technical challenges to deal with.
Oh my gosh, there is always.
Okay. Actually, I put the evaluation form for the library. I don't know, do you have the evaluation form too, in case?
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me see the next slide. Yes, we do. I believe we'll be sharing the slides as well too after this presentation. So we can also include the link for the evaluation form in case anyone isn't able to access it through the chat today. And this is also a reminder to join our mailing list to hear the latest news from UHN libraries, any upcoming workshops. We have latest books, latest ongoing projects and programs we have. Please sign up for that as well.
And then we'll be sending out an email tomorrow with the recording and all of the materials that Ashley just spoke about, including the evaluation form and link to the mailing list.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Amanda.
It looks like we have a question from Amir.
Oh, great.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, good. How are you?
Not too bad. Just a quick question regarding the data management. Just wondering if there's any software or any sort of application that we can use to kind of help us out to manage the data a bit better.
No software off the top of my head that I can think of that's going to help you be a little bit more effective in terms of your data management. A lot of it comes down to being able to label files in a consistent manner, typically with a date attached to them as well. File and folder management is a big part of it. There are RDMP templates that are available online through a number of different sources. That can be very helpful because what they essentially do is ask you a series of leading questions that you then answer, and that helps you build your research data management plan. But if you're looking for a paid software that kind of does it all for you, unfortunately, I can't think of any off the top of my head. that it is very much RDM is very much a skill that you build over time, and you start by doing things like just labeling files appropriately, and then you move into things like saving things in more open access formats that, non-proprietary formats. For instance, I used a .csv file as an example. Comma separated value files are much better because a number of different programs can read them. So if you save your Excel spreadsheet as just an XLS file, unfortunately, that means it's pretty much limited to Excel. And a .csv file is a lot more interoperable. It can be used by a lot more different programs. So that's kind of the next step. Is it starts by just being organized in your day-to-day practice, and it moves into being aware that, in the future you may be called upon to share this information, and so having it in a format that's able to be shared a little bit more equitably than in a proprietary format is a good next step. If anyone knows of any paid software that will do all this for you, I would love to have it.
No, I was just wondering because I'm kind of going through the same process as well, just learning on my own and also getting help from my PI as well. I just wondering if there was any sort of application, not fully paid or not fully helping, but just sort of to kind of get us going a bit in a faster way. That's what I was kind of aiming for. But if there isn't, then there isn't then.
Well, I mean, if you have specific questions or if you're struggling with specific things, I'm happy to answer that in a longer format. If you send me an email, I'll type my email in the chat here. Because if you're struggling with it, I'm happy to, give you a hand. The other thing is there are RDMP templates, research data management plan templates that are available through UHN Research. They should be available through the SharePoint there. As a Michener employee, I can't, say for sure because I don't have access to that. But if you're looking for a little bit of help, I'm happy to give you a hand. My email's in the chat.
Yeah, sure. I think that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Amazing. So if there are no other questions, I just want to say thank you again to the whole UHN Library and Information Services team for helping us with this workshop today. And thank you all for your attention. We hope to see you at the next session in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And if you have any questions, please contact us at the library at any time.